Good morning, and thank you all for joining this live BSI webinar on food safety certification for small and medium enterprises. I'm Danica Tinkata, the Business Development Executive for BSI South Africa, and I'm here today with Kelly Mulholland, our Food Sector Lead at BSI South Africa. Kelly holds a BTech in Food Technology and has focused her career around food safety and quality management systems and auditing. Kelly is currently a lead auditor for FSSC 22000, BRCGS Food and HACCP, auditing an array of different low and high risk foodstuffs. Kelly's previously worked in food manufacturing industry for over 7 years in both quality assurance and technical roles. And also with us today is George Makore, the Deputy Chief of Party for USAID Southern Trade and Investment Hub. I'm sure many of you know George, but as the modest man he is, I'm not sure how many of you know his background. So I'll just do a short introduction before I hand over to George. George has over 25 years experience in working on programs aimed at enhancing regional integration and strengthening the region's competitiveness, focusing on trade, investment, policy issues, standards, communication, and project management, including 15 years senior management experience. And George has successfully facilitated the development of the African Growth and Opportunity Act utilization strategies for Botswana, Lesotho, Malawi, and Zambia to support increased trade and investment and improved economies of scale. So George, I'll hand over to you now. Welcome. George, you'll just need to unmute yourself, please.
I'll do that. Sorry about that. Thanks very much, Danica, and welcome to everybody to this very important training session. Thank you for taking the time to attend. Just so that you know where we come in terms of our work with BSI. We the USAID Southern Africa Trade and Investment Hub. For those that do not know, we are a USAID funded project, and we work in the region, mainly in the areas of that also include aspects that BSI covers. The countries that we cover, 8 out of the 16 SADC countries, and I always want to call them SACU +3. So the 5 SACU countries led by South Africa, then there's Eswatini, Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia. Then we also have Mozambique, Zambia, and Malawi. Those are the 8 countries that we cover in the region. Our work is really in the area where we, in terms of the reason why we are here today, the area that we concentrate on is to make sure that companies from the region are able to meet or comply with market entry requirements for the markets that they are targeting. Particularly in our case, we're looking at South Africa, companies that are outside South Africa being able to export to South Africa and meet the market entry requirements here, as well as all the 8 countries, companies from the 8 countries that we cover being able to meet market entry requirements for the United States market. So, and we realize that food certification is a very critical aspect of market entry requirements, all the certifications that are required. And we hope that the session that we're going to go into today will really help get us on the way to actually do that. Thanks very much. I wish you fruitful discussions, let me put it that way. Thanks, Danica.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, George. So before we begin, I just want to make you aware that you have joined this webinar in mute-only mode. So you are not able to talk to each other or to us, and this is because of the number of delegates on the webinar today. However, please feel free to type your questions in the question box in your webinar control panel, and we will do our best to answer them in our Q&A section at the end of the presentation. We will also be running polls during the webinar to engage with you and to get your feedback on specific topics that we'll be discussing today. So on that note, I'll hand over to Kelly. Thanks, Kelly.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Danica. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks, George, for having us to be able to present this webinar to you today. So the webinar we'll be discussing is the Food Safety Certification, the essential building blocks for SMEs. As Danica mentioned, we'll be having Q&A sessions at the end of the session today. So please, I encourage you to pop any questions that you may have into that Q&A box so that we can assist you with that later today as well. So today we'll look at different food safety schemes applicable to SMEs and the journey to certification. We'll end the session by looking at the various food safety trainings that will enable you to implement and maintain a food safety system to essentially reach the ultimate goal, which is certification. But first, we're going to start off by giving you a short introduction to who BSI is. BSI has been around for over 100 years. We're the world's first national standards body and the #1 standard creation body in the world. We were a founding member of the International Organization for Standardization, also known as ISO, and we shape the world's most adopted standards. Today, BSI is truly a global brand with over 5,000 BSI employees serving clients from around 84 offices in 31 countries across the world. Our clients range from globally recognized brands to small local companies in 195 countries. In addition, we work with over 12,000 experts to develop standards. We are among the most respected and reputable management system certifications body in the world, and we hold accreditation with 20 local and international bodies. Our accreditation provides further assurance to you that the certificates we issue you are credible as well as impartial. We are a Royal Charter company. Our purpose is to inspire trust for a more resilient world. Our solutions and services improve performance and support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. At BSI, our mission is to share knowledge, innovation, best practice to help people and organizations such as yourself make excellence a habit. This is underpinned by our role as the UK's national standards body and through our prestigious Royal Charter. As BSI has grown and evolved, our Royal Charter has been amended several times to reflect the magnitude and the importance of the work that we do nationally and internationally across industries to facilitate innovation, trade, and consumer groups. BSI's Royal Charter is essentially an enabling document that sets out our purpose and defines in broad terms our range of activities, as well as our ability to offer global accredited training, testing, and certification services. So in this section, we'll look at the importance of food safety certification. So this is our introduction to food safety certification and introduce you to different food schemes that I'll cover a little bit later in more detail, more of those which are applicable to you. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is why food safety conformity. So why food safety conformity? We need to remember that there are many benefits linked to conformity, and it will essentially drive growth, reduce costs, and improve efficiency within your organizations. Through certifications, companies can achieve a competitive advantage by taking leadership position on food safety, create a positive brand image through food safety compliance, and consumer awareness can also be reached through compliance and can effectively harness the conscious consumer. For investors, one can attract investment where compliance is met and growth is evident. It will give you the ability to demonstrate credentials in tenders and business opportunities, and the ability to gain local, global market access through compliance. With regards to government, food safety compliance can mitigate threats to economic growth. You can stay ahead of regulation and liability issues through proactively implementing compliance within your organization. And food safety compliance means enhanced security of the supply chain and mitigating cost of regulation as well. Next, when we have a look at the food supply chain, as the world's population increases, the quality and sustainability must also be safeguarded within the industry. The world must be supplied with safe, quality product that is produced sustainably and ethically. Farmers, manufacturers, catering facilities, fast food industries, storage and distribution warehouses, and any one company handling food or human or animal consumption must comply to statutory and regulatory requirements in order to supply to the local market, as well as to export products to different global markets. Now when we have a look at the different business standards, so I'd like to introduce you to these 6 core non-food issue ISO business standards, and these are used in the food sector to ensure best practice and resilience as well. I'm sure some of you are familiar with some of these, like the ISO 9001 Quality Management System Standard, or the ISO 14001 Environmental Management System Standard. BSI have developed and helped develop both of these standards, including the recently published ISO 45001 Occupational Health and Safety Standard. Our range of integrated services can be structured to your specific needs and to also help you address key food safety, quality, sustainability, and general business management concerns. Embedding good business practices can be the backbone to creating a more successful business, from entrepreneurs to established companies, and achieving true success is all about how you perform day in and day out and how you manage your business risks. So these standards which I'd like to introduce you to is the ISO 9001 Quality Management Standard, ISO 14001 for Environmental Management Systems, ISO 45001 for Occupational Health and Safety. Then there's also ISO 27001, which is for information security, ISO 50001 for energy management, and ISO 22301 for business continuity management. BSI offers 4 of the GFSI food safety schemes, and these include BRCGS, FSSC 22000, Global GAP, and SQF. We'll be discussing these in a little bit more detail a little bit later on in the webinar. When we have a look at our BSI food portfolio, some of these also include the BSI HACCP and GMP certification, the BSI FSMA certification, SANS 10330 of 2020, which is an accredited HACCP certification, specifically localized to the local SANS standard, FSSC development program, ISO 22000, and we also offer the RSPO certification for roundtable on sustainable palm oil. Today we're going to be covering only the HACCP and the FSSC development program, but we would also like to reiterate that BSI can offer and deliver a wide variety of different food safety schemes as well, depending on your customer requirements. As you've come to realize, BSI is an industry thought leader, and we have pioneered the development of many publicly available standards. These include things such as PAS 85, which is a standard for the integrity and traceability of primary products in the agri-food chain, PAS 72, which is a specification for responsible fishing and good practice for vessel operators, and some of you may be more familiar with PAS 96, which is the guidance for detection and defeat of malicious attack on food and drink, which we also refer to as HACCP and threat assessment or food defense and food security. BSI have commitment to produce thought leader articles on emerging issues, whether it be food fraud, business continuity, antibiotics, CSR, supply chain risk, or labeling. And this is just about name a few. We will endeavor to keep our clients updated as we regularly publish new articles which become freely available to you. This concludes the introduction section, and we will now head over into our first poll question. So Graham, if I can ask you to pop the poll question onto the screen. So the first poll that we will be conducting is, does your facility currently hold food safety certification? So if you can give us an indication of whether you do currently hold food safety certification. Yes, no, or whether you're in progress, and you can select your answer by clicking on the box on the left. Just whilst you guys are selecting your answer for the first poll question, just want to remind you that we have a Q&A session that's taking place later on during this webinar. So I really encourage you to pop any questions that you may have, or any questions you really like answers to within the Q&A box, in order for us to assist you further with that later on in our session. Wonderful. I see we've also got the poll results up. So 29% of you currently hold food safety certification, 64% currently not holding certification, and 7% are currently in process. So just it's really great to see those numbers, and also for us to see how we can assist you and how we can guide you towards food safety certification as well. Now we're going to be getting into the section where we cover the different schemes that you may like to consider whilst you're starting your journey towards a food safety system, especially for the SMEs. So the first one that we're going to be having a discussion about is SANS 10330 of 2020, which is HACCP certification, and it is a local accredited certification. BSI is accredited to deliver this program by SANS. When we have a look at the SANS HACCP scope of accreditation, we are currently, as BSI, we are currently accredited to deliver certification covering meat and edible meat offal, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and other parts of plants, beverages, beer, wine, and spirits, food preparation and catering, as well as different forms of packaging. We are, however, still able to offer you the other scopes, and will arrange a SANS witness audit to take place when your audit is delivered, so that we can gain accreditation for that additional scope, so that you can receive a SANS HACCP certification. Next, when we have a look at the certification process for SANS HACCP, the certificate is valid for 3 years, as the certification is a 3-year cycle. You can decide to undergo a pre-assessment similar to a gap assessment prior to certification, and this will help you identify gaps in your system before you undergo your initial certification audit. The initial certification audit consists of a stage 1 and a stage 2 audit, followed by 2-year surveillance audits. Thereafter, the 3-year cycle will consist of a recertification audit, followed by 2 years of surveillance audits. This certification is made up of 2 different standards which we would be auditing you against. The first being SANS 10330 of 2020, which is the requirements for a food safety system based on prerequisite programs and the hazard analysis and critical control point HACCP principles. As we can see on the right of the webinar slide, it's indicating the different requirements that are assessed and the clauses that are assessed within the certification, including documentation requirements, management responsibility, resources, corrective action, food safety measurement, including internal audits, as well as preliminary steps and the application of the HACCP principles. When you have a look at the prerequisite programs for this certification, this is where we're going to be having a look at SANS 1049 of 2019, which is a South African national standard for the requirements for prerequisite programs for food safety management. These include both non-operational requirements, for example, construction and layout and conditions of the food handling organizations, as well as operational requirements such as receiving, storage, traceability, emergency preparedness. So that's just a brief introduction to the SANS 10330 HACCP certification. Next, we're going to be having a look at the GFSI Global Markets Program. So first, I want to give you a background of who is the GFSI, what is the Global Food Safety Initiative. So the Global Food Safety Initiative was created in 2000, and this was to help address the global issue. It is a landmark initiative of the Consumer Goods Forum and a global industry network working to support better lives through better business. GFSI aims to improve food safety and business efficiency, and GFSI works in benchmarking and harmonization, fostering mutual acceptance of GFSI recognized certification programs across the industry, and enables a simplified, once certified, recognized everywhere approach. This reduces inefficiencies from duplication of audits and helps reduce trade barriers. The GFSI benchmarking process is now the most widely recognized in the food industry worldwide. So to start off with having a look at GFSI, we're going to start considering the GFSI Global Markets Program. The Global Markets Program is a stepwise pathway towards GFSI recognized certification for companies that lack or wish to improve their food safety systems. Companies that leverage this program develop effective food safety management systems through a systematic, continuous improvement process. When we have a look at the GFSI Global Markets Program, it consists of three pre-certification stages, as the Global Markets Program is not certification, it's development towards certification. So the three pre-certification stages consist of a self-assessment, a basic assessment, or an intermediate assessment. The basic and intermediate assessments, they are unaccredited assessments based on food safety systems, good manufacturing practices, or good agricultural practices, as well as the control of food hazards. After completing the intermediate level of the program, companies such as yourselves are ready to apply for certification with the GFSI recognized body. So one of the first GFSI benchmark global market programs we'll be discussing is the FSSC development program. The food chain categories considered underneath the FSSC development program are taken from ISO Technical Specification 22003, and they are category C, which is for the processing of perishable animal and plant products, as well as ambient stable products, category D, which is for the production of pet food, specifically for dogs and cats, and then category K for the production of biochemicals. BSI is currently licensed to deliver category C and category K to you. When we have a look at the program overview, the FSSC Development Program overview, Foundation FSSC designed the FSSC Development Program for use by SMEs in the food manufacturing industry. It's a conformity-based food safety systems assessment and is not an accredited certification. As there is a level 1 and level 2 conformity assessment, there is an assessment level available in line with what your organization's current level of food safety needs are. As an organization grows, this program allows the food safety system to progress towards full certification. The program is aligned with Codex HACCP principles, Global Food Safety Initiative Global Markets programs, as we discussed earlier, as well as FSSC 22000, which facilitates a stepwise approach to reach certification against a GFSI benchmark standard in the future. Next, we're having a look at the FSSC development program process. So once you've completed the self-assessment, you can decide to undergo a level 1 or level 2 assessment. You can either remain at level 1 or level 2 conformity assessment the following year, or you can decide, are you now ready to progress to full certification? This can also depend on what your customer requirements are as well. When we have a look at the assessment criteria, for level 1 is aligned with the GFSI Global Markets basic level, supplemented by Codex HACCP. Level 2 is aligned with the GFSI Global Markets Program foundation level. And the requirements for both of these programs consist of three main parts: food safety system requirements, prerequisite program requirements, and the FSSC additional requirements. We're going to have a look at those in a little bit more detail next. So the assessment requirements for food safety system, which is part 1 of the FSSC development program, is based on some of the requirements from clauses of ISO 22000. Some of the requirements are only applicable to level 2 conformity assessment, however, such as procedures, emergency preparedness and response, as well as complaint handling. Whereas all the rest of the requirements are applicable to level 1 and to level 2. These include leadership and commitment, organizational roles and responsibilities and authorities, and works the way through to complaint handling. The assessment requirements for the prerequisite programs is based on some of the requirements from clauses of ISO Technical Specification 22002.1, which is the PRP standard for food manufacturing. Some of the requirements are only applicable to the Level 2 conformity assessment, such as product information and consumer awareness, as well as food defense, biovigilance, and bioterrorism. The prerequisite programs applicable to the FSSC development program include construction and layout of buildings, layout of premises and workspace, utilities, air, water, energy, and continues down through to warehousing for Level 1, and then the other 2 additional requirements as I've mentioned for Level 2. There are also FSSC additional requirements that are specifically determined and put into place by the FSSC Foundation. So for the FSSC development program, this also includes 2 of the FSSC 22,000 additional requirements. First being logo use for both Level 1 and Level 2, and then management of services for Level 2 only. Now that we've discussed what the criteria are and what the program is based on, next we're going to be looking at who should use this program. The FSSC development program is applicable to smaller and medium-sized manufacturers of food products and food ingredients. And this can include, as you can see, this can include artisan food manufacturers and startups, food product and food ingredient manufacturers in emerging markets, developers of novel foods and ingredients, as well as for manufacturers of food products for delivery to restaurants and to the retail sector. So how does the program work? The first step is that you need to complete the self-assessment, which I'm going to show you on the next slide. So this self-assessment is a free tool for you to use to determine where your appropriate level of conformity sits. The second step is for you to then book a conformity assessment with us, and we will then come and conduct your conformity assessment to support your level of conformity. The third step being continuous improvement. And this is where you as the food organizations need to maintain and improve your food safety system. And then we will conduct annual assessments to assess your conformity level and your conformity is still meeting the requirements of the FSSC development program conformity assessment. So as I mentioned, this is an example of what the FSSC development program self-assessment tool looks like. The self-assessment tool is a spreadsheet which your organization completes prior to applying for a conformity assessment to be conducted. And it covers the 3 sections of requirements as we've mentioned, the food safety system requirements, the prerequisite program requirements, and the FSSC additional requirements. What is nice is that the self-assessment tool is structured the same way the report is structured, which the assessor will use when they come and perform your conformity assessment. And you can obtain a copy of the self-assessment tool from BSI, or you can download it off the FSSC 22,000 website underneath the FSSC Development Program Requirement documentation. So further on, how does it work? We need to have a look at what is the assessment duration and what is it based on. So the assessment duration for an FSSC Development Program assessment is based on the number of full-time employees and the number of production lines your organization has. The table indicates the man-day durations your assessment will depend on the number of staff and the number of production lines. So if your facility has between 1 and 30 employees and or 1 to 3 production lines, your assessment would be a 1-day conformity assessment, whether it's Level 1 or Level 2. If you have between 31 to 100 staff members and or you have between 4 and 6 production lines, it would be a 2-day conformity assessment. And if you have 101 or greater than 101 personnel, and or you have 6 or more, you have greater than 6 production lines, your assessment duration would be of 3 days duration. Then keep in mind that we also take into account preparation time and report writing time for this conformity assessment as well. So an example that's currently displaying on the screen is that if you have 28 employees, but you still have 4 production lines, then it would require a 2-day duration as we work on the highest out of the 2 different requirements. What's displaying on the screen at the moment is an example of the conformity statement. So you get issued with a conformity statement, and sites are issued with a statement after successfully undergoing a level 1 or level 2 assessment, as well as sufficiently closing out the non-conformities that are identified during this assessment. Food organizations can then decide to remain at level 1 or level 2, or you could grow through to full FSSC 22000 certification. The validity of the conformity statement is 1 year, so you will be issued with a conformity statement with a validity of 1 year, after which you'll undergo your annual assessment again and then get reissued with another conformity statement. Just to mention, although this is an unaccredited program, FSSC Foundation has implemented an integrity program to monitor the integrity of the program, as well as the conformity assessment bodies that offer these programs, such as BSI. The output for food organizations for this conformity assessment would be that you are assessed via a standardized assessment report, you're issued with a conformity statement, and you're also listed in the FSSC public register. Benefits of the program include things such as the program is recognized nationally, so as well as internationally. All conforming sites, as I've mentioned, are listed on the FSSC register on the FSSC Foundation's website, and this enables any of your customers or potential clients to have a look on this register and can see for themselves that it has been that you are conforming and that you do have a valid conformity statement. The program also allows for alignment with other standards, other ISO standards. Just to briefly mention some of the differences between the FSSC Development Program, which is aligned with the Global Markets Program, and the FSSC 22000 standard, which is a certification which is fully approved by the GFSI. So FSSC 22000 certification, so again, this is accredited, covers the full requirements of ISO 22000 and the technical specifications and all of the FSSC additional requirements, whereas the FSSC Development Program covers the minimum food safety requirements based on Codex HACCP and the GFSI Global Markets Program. The certification scheme for FSSC 22000 is fully recognized by GFSI as it meets all the GFSI requirements, whereas the conformity assessment is not recognized by GFSI, but it is benchmarked against the requirements of GFSI Global Markets Programs. FSSC 22000 is accredited under the ISO 17021, whereas FSSC Development Program is not accredited. However, in order to deliver this assessment, it is licensed. So we as BSI have a license with the FSSC Foundation in order for us to deliver these conformity assessments. And then again, the FSSC 22000 certification, its certificate has a validity of 3 years, and the conformity statement has a validity of 1 year. Although in both, you will be audited on an annual basis. Now next, we're going to be getting into the second form of global markets type of program, and that is the BRCGS START program. So BRCGS START has replaced the Global Markets Program delivered by BRC. The program is also not accredited, and sites are issued with a certificate without a grade for this specific type of assessment. The duration of a BRCGS basic level and START program is a 1-day duration, and an intermediate level is between 1 and 1.5 days, depending on the size of your organization and your staff numbers. So just to mention to you, this is the second of those type of global markets programs that we want to make. Now, next we're going to be moving on to your journey towards full certification for SMEs. So during this section, we'll cover the different schemes that you may like to consider when you're progressing towards full certification. The first certification we'd like to discuss, as we've been discussing the FSSC Development Program, is now the FSSC 22000 certification, which is GFSI recognized certification as well. FSSC 22000 stands for the Food Safety System Certification, and it's based on the full requirements of ISO 22000, the full requirements of the ISO Technical Specification for PRPs, as well as the full 9 additional requirements set forth by the FSSC Foundation. So why would you choose FSSC 22000 as a certification to go for when you are now growing towards full certification? So it is a framework for robust and an effective food safety management system. As I've mentioned, it's fully recognized by the GFSI. It's based on existing ISO standards, which then means it can be integrated into other management systems. It covers the entire food supply chain, and there's also a training program that is supporting this certification. So as I've mentioned, the scheme structure contains ISO 22000, which provides a common framework across the entire supply chain to manage requirements, communication internally and externally, as well as continually improve the system. It also is based on the ISO technical specification, which is the 22002 series, which are sector-specific prerequisite programs, depending on your type of sector you're based in, as well as the FSSC additional requirements. And these requirements ensure consistency, integrity, and also provide governance and management of the scheme to ensure it is in line with the GFSI requirements. And then also, very important to mention, is the Board of Stakeholders decision list. The Board of Stakeholders decision list is a list that's updated by the Foundation FSSC when they have other requirements that need to be implemented. This can be found on the FSSC 22000 website, along with the other scheme documentation. And this Board of Stakeholders decision list includes additional requirements that need to be met. And in this list, it tells you whether or not it is mandatory, voluntary, and when the effective date is for these requirements to be implemented by. So if you are going for FSSC 22000 certification, make sure you're keeping up to date and you're having a look at the FSSC 22000 website for updates as well. Just to briefly touch on what are the FSSC 22000 additional requirements. This includes management of services, product labeling, food defense, food fraud mitigation, logo use, so that's the use of the FSSC 22000 logo, management of allergens, again only applicable to certain categories, environmental monitoring applicable to Category C for food manufacturing, Category I for packaging, and Category K for biochemicals. Then formulation of products, which is specifically applicable to Category D, which is pet food manufacturing. And then the last additional requirement for transport and delivery. However, this is only applicable for Category FI, retail and wholesale. Next, we're just briefly going to touch on, just give you an indication of what are the ISO Technical Specification 22002 series. So the main one that we have mentioned during the course of this webinar so far is the ISO Technical Specification 22002 Part 1, which is the prerequisite programs for food safety for food manufacturing. However, you also get applicable ISO Technical Specification prerequisite program standards for catering, farming, food packaging manufacturing, transport and storage, as well as feed and animal food production. So when we look at the certification process for FSSC 22000, so ISO 17021 and ISO 22003 define the framework for the certification process that we have to adhere to. A certificate is valid for 3 years, and the certification cycle consists of an initial audit, which is a stage 1, and then followed by a stage 2 audit, with then 2 surveillance audits following on in the following 2 years, followed by recertification audits. You can also opt to have a pre-audit or a pre-assessment, whereby we can come in and identify gaps within the system. This, however, is optional and is not a requirement in order to go for FSSC 22000 certification. FSSC 22000 holds extra requirements to bring the scheme in line with the GFSI requirements, and this includes surveillance audits needing to assess all the requirements of ISO 22, ISO technical specification for PRPs, as well as the FSSC additional requirements. And then there is also a requirement for unannounced audits, which are compulsory, and that is that one of the surveillance audits that you undergo within your 3-year cycle needs to be fully unannounced. This is just an indication of how the certification process works for FSSC 22000. Next, to briefly touch on special audits that could be undertaken as part of FSSC 22000. If you have a head office that centralizes and controls certain functions of your food safety management system, you could have a head office audit conducted. All sites would then be issued with a separate report and certificate, but your head office's information would be included in each, as head office cannot be certified separately, so there would not be a separate certificate for the head office. The head office would need to be audited first, and then all sites within the 12 months of auditing the head offices would need to be conducted. For off-site activities, where one manufacturing or service process is split across more than one physical address, all locations may be covered in one audit, provided that the different addresses are part of the same legal entity under the same food safety management system. So the same food safety management system is controlling those different sites, and that they are the sole receiver and customer of each other. Storage facilities at another location can also be included in the same audit, provided that they also meet the same requirements of being part of the same legal entity under the same food safety management system, and also are the sole storage facility for those other manufacturing sites. Then briefly, multi-site audits. Multi-site audits, which is where there's sampling in place, is only applicable for category A, animal farming, E, catering, FI, retail and wholesale, and G, storage and distribution. So multi-site audits are not applicable for category C for food manufacturing, category B, category I for packaging, or category K for biochemical production. The next certification we'll be discussing is BRCGS Food Safety Certification, which is also a recognized, GFSI recognized certification. So this is just an example of what the standard looks like. You can download a free locked PDF copy of the BRCGS Food Safety Issue 8 standard off the BRCGS Bookshop website. So that is the website that's currently displaying. The BRCGS Food Safety Issue 8 version of the standard provides a framework to manage product safety, integrity, legality, and quality, and the operational controls for these criteria in the food and food ingredient manufacturing, processing, and packing industry. And this version, Issue 8 of the standard, focuses on encouraging development of product safety culture, so food safety culture, which is a big topic in industry at the moment, expanding the requirements for environmental monitoring, encouraging sites to further develop systems for site security and food defense, adding clarity to the requirements for high-risk, high-care and ambient high-care production risk zones, as well as providing greater clarity for sites who manufacture pet food. This standard also ensures global applicability and benchmarking to the Global Food Safety Initiative. The BRCGS Food Safety Issue 8 standard is divided up into 9 different sections. First being Senior Management Commitment, the Food Safety Plan for HACCP, Food Safety and Quality Management Systems, Site Standards, where majority of your PRPs sit, Product Control, Process Control, and Personnel. Section 8, which is High Risk, High Care, and Ambient High Care Production Risk Zones, is only applicable to sites which have those zones within their facilities. And then Section 9, Requirements for Traded Products, is only applicable for organizations that purchase in traded goods and then sell them out as is. Previously, you could opt to be audited for traded products. Now it is part of the standard, so if you are supplying traded products, it would be audited. The BRCGS Food Safety Issue 8 certification audit is an annual audit, so you would have an audit taking place every single year, and you'd be issued with a new certificate and a specific grade after every audit that has taken place, and once you have closed out all the non-conformities that were generated during the audit. This is just some information for you on the other types of BRCGS scheme certifications that are offered, such as agent and brokers, retail, gluten-free, consumer products, certification for packaging material, storage and distribution, as well as ethical trade and responsible sourcing and plant-based certification. Now that we've gone through the different global market program conformity assessment options such as FSSC Development Program and BRCGS Start. And now that we've gone through the certifications that are benchmarked with GFSI, such as FSSC 22000 and BRCGS, we just want to mention the different exporting for SMEs. It's the site's responsibility to check what global market program aligned conformity assessment your customer or country you're exporting to will accept. So you need to confirm with your customer and the country which you're exporting to which of these programs would be accepted: FSSC Development Program, BRCGS Start Program. And then when you're needing to obtain full GFSI recognized certification, you can then build on your current food safety management system, and you can then go forth and seek certification audit. So that has now covered our journey from the conformity assessments through to our certification audits. So now it's time for our next poll to be launched. So this poll is on which food safety scheme have you implemented, or are you in the process of implementing at your facility? So you should be able to see on your screen at the moment, you should be able to select whether you currently have implemented or are implementing HACCP, FSSC 22000, FSSC Development Program, BRCGS Food Safety, Global GAP, or you can indicate if there's another type of certification which you have been implementing within your facility. We'll give you a minute or so to just vote on this poll. Again, just want to remind you that you are welcome to pop any question you may have with regards to food safety certifications, conformity assessments, or training into the Q&A box, and we'll answer those questions for you when we get to the Q&A session, which is going to take place shortly. So we'll just give you a little bit more time to answer this poll question. I see at the moment 27% of those of you on the call have voted. So we'll just give you another 30 seconds or so just to pop your votes into the poll box as well before we close the poll. Wonderful. So we now have got our poll results, and we can see that 47% of you are currently implementing or have HACCP certification, 5% FSSC 22000, 16% FSSC Development Program, 16% for BRCGS Food Safety, and a further 16% for Global GAP. Thank you guys very much for voting. It gives us a good idea of where you're currently standing with regards to food safety certification or implementation of food safety systems. So now we're going to be discussing food safety training solutions for SMEs. So to start off by just mentioning to you the different BSI training offering that we have. We offer public training, which allows delegates to network with peers, but we also offer in-house training courses suited for a specific organization and for those specific employees and processes that are undertaken. So the type of trainings include the first being awareness training, information sessions, as well as introduction training and management briefings. And these include things and training such as good manufacturing processes, food handling and food hygiene, as well as an introduction to food safety based on the R638 regulation in South Africa. Then secondly, implementation training and lead implementer training. And this can be for HACCP, such as for the SANS HACCP, and can also be food safety standard implementation courses, such as for ISO 22000, FSSC 22000, BRCGS, food safety and food packaging, as well as FSSC development program. Then thirdly, lead auditor training or internal auditor training. And lastly, the fourth type, which is for improvement, for continual improvement, our capacity building programs, which include things such as HACCP refreshers, food defense, food fraud, PAS 96 being for food defense, effective foreign matter management, as well as root cause analysis in the food industry. This is just to name a few of the courses that we are able to offer. So as I've mentioned, we're able to offer you both face-to-face and in-house, face-to-face in-house training and public training, but we're also able to offer you virtual training for public or in-house, which is our connected learning live offering. So delegates receive the same high quality training led by an expert tutor in a virtual classroom. Connected Live Learning is a real-time online way for us to train the delegates, and delivers our world-class learning program through an engaging and a very interactive experience where a lot of activities and classroom-based discussions are held. It's an ideal alternative to learning in a classroom if you or the tutor is unable to travel, or you just prefer the convenience of attending a course in your own chosen organization or environment. And although your tutor may be far away and your fellow delegates are in different locations, we'll bring you together in a virtual classroom and undertake many activities to still reach the same learning outcomes and the learning goals. So thank you guys very much for taking the time to listen to me today to introduce you to different food safety and conformity assessments, certifications, and the different training options available. We'd now like to go into our last poll question, which is, do you require more information on food safety training? So we're going to pop that poll question up now, and we'll give you guys another minute just to mention again any questions you have for the Q&A session, which is going to take place shortly. We've extended time a little bit, but we're still going to get to do some of the questions from the Q&A session, and those questions which we are not able to answer during today's webinar, as we are close to the end of the time, we will still be getting back to you with feedback. We will make sure that you receive feedback via email to answer each and every question that has been posted into the Q&A session today. So we're still just waiting for a few more delegates to give us some feedback for the poll question, and then we will give you some feedback thereafter. Great, wonderful. So we can see from the poll results that 94% of those on the webinar today would be interested in getting some more information on food safety training. Food safety training is the backbone also to implementing an effective food safety system, as without knowing what the requirements are, you can't implement those requirements. So I just want to say thank you guys very much. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, and I'm going to hand back over to Danica now for the Q&A session.
Great, thanks so much, Kelly. I'm sure that everyone learns a lot today, and we'll be receiving many more questions after the session today. Seeing that we only have 3 minutes left, I'll just start with the first few questions that came through. So the first question was, what could be the next step after implementation of HACCP in the agribusiness? Which standard would be suitable for continual improvement?
Okay, great. Thanks, Danica. It's a really good question. So it depends. If you're looking at farming operations, if you're looking at the farming side of agriculture, you'll be looking at a global GAP certification. And then if you are looking for a pack house, for instance, then you could consider anything from BRCGS Food Safety, FSSC 22000, or one of the other GFSI recognized certifications. Again, depending on where you're exporting to, different countries have different requirements for which GFSI certification they would prefer. So always just remember to confirm that as well before you decide on that certification.
Thank you. The second question, please confirm if there are restrictions or limitations around documentation to go through level 1 of the FSSC development program. For example, like with certification where they require an X amount of weeks or months of records before the audit can be conducted.
Great, another really good question. So there would need to be between 1 month and 3 months worth of records in order for an assessor to come and assess you for a conformity assessment.
Great. The third question that came through was, does BSI offer ethical or social audits?
Yes, so we do offer our corporate social responsibility audits. We are able to deliver SMETA audits, VETA audits, CESA audits, so we do have that offering as well.
Okay, great. And another person asked, they are a manufacturer of soya spices in Zambia, and we are looking forward to explore the USA market. What kind of food safety certification must we look forward for? So I think it's like you mentioned before, they will need to check with their customers what certification they would accept, correct?
Yes, that would be correct. Any of those that we've discussed today could potentially be a solution for them, but it is best to confirm with the clients that you are exporting to which of the certifications they prefer.
Okay, great. I see that it is 12 o'clock, so we have run out of time, unfortunately, but we will definitely get back to every single question that we've received today via email, like Kelly mentioned. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to us even after the session. Later on, we're always available on hand to assist you. And yeah, for myself and Kelly and George and the rest of the SATI team, we would like to thank the audience for joining us today, and we really hope you enjoyed the webinar. And just a reminder to everyone that this webinar recording will be shared with you after the event. And if you would like to contact BSI after the presentation, I think our contact details are on the screen right now. So you're more than welcome to reach out to me. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, George.